My brother put me in the garage to sleep, while he lived like royalty. Once gambling took everything from him, I bought his house and made him take up residence in the same garage. Now he observes his former wife going out with my closest friend through the grimy windows. Do you ever have that instant when you see that your entire family setup was based on deception? That feeling really got to me last night while I watched my brother, Carter, through the window of our old garage. The same garage where he made me live for nearly a year. It's the same dirty window that I used to look through while he was enjoying life inside our family house. It's strange how things turn around. Okay, let me explain a bit more. Last spring, I lost everything when my business idea went bust. I'm not just talking about a minor issue, either. I mean everything I owned. My money, my apartment, even my sense of who I was. It's tough at 28, moving back to your hometown. Returning to the house you grew up in, even tougher. But I had no other option. Mom still resided in our old house, and Carter had moved back in with his wife, Gabriella, a few years prior. He said he was helping Mom out. The truth was that Mom, at 58, had more get up and go than all of us. She did morning yoga, went hiking with her friends 3 times each week, and ran the local book club. Carter helping her, it was quite the opposite. When I called to ask about staying for a little while, Carter's reaction should have been my first signal something was wrong. He went silent, then said in a strangely composed voice, "Well, all the bedrooms are full, but..." I figured we could make some room in the garage, and because I was in a bad spot, I agreed, assuming it wouldn't be for long. Well, surprise it was. The garage was precisely what you'd think. A concrete floor, some spider webs, and that familiar scent of old motor oil mixed with dusty cardboard boxes. Carter had been gracious enough to put an ancient camping cot in one corner for me. While he and Gabriella had the master bedroom and Mom had hers, here's the really annoying part. Carter was using my old bedroom as his own personal space, mainly for online gaming. That first night really set the stage. I tried to go inside to use the bathroom, and Carter completely shut me down. "Hey, use the side door and the small bathroom by the kitchen. Mom's trying to sleep, and we can't have you making noise at all hours." It was only 8:30 at night. Later, I learned he'd told Mom I'd specifically asked for the garage because I needed space to deal with my setbacks. Living in the garage then turned into a real lesson in surviving winter. I would wake up and see frost on the inside of the windows. I started carefully planning my bathroom trips around Carter's surprise house curfews. He even began keeping track of how long I was in the shower, saying I was increasing the water bill. This from a guy who hadn't contributed a penny toward rent since he moved back in. Gabriella was the only one who seemed to understand how completely wrong everything was. She'd discreetly bring me coffee in the mornings, always glancing around like a spy in her own house. "He's changed," she'd quietly say. "Ever since we moved back, it's been like this. It's like this transformation has occurred with him. Occasionally, I can't even place who he is anymore." The oddities began to mount up. I'd return home to find my belongings rearranged, which indicated Carter had been rummaging through my possessions while I was away. He'd established peculiar, random rules about when I was permitted to use the kitchen microwave or do laundry. It seemed like he got some strange satisfaction from controlling every single aspect of my existence. Subsequently, things began to get more intriguing. I started discovering little pieces of paper in the garage, like receipts Carter had unintentionally left behind, and even bank statements he'd tried to conceal. The figures just weren't adding up. On several mornings, I would overhear him having heated telephone conversations, whispering about needing more time and extending deadlines. During this period, I met Haley. She resided in the apartment building that was opposite my workplace, and we kept bumping into each other at the nearby coffee shop. When I shared my living situation with her, she didn't give me the expected sympathy. Rather, she helped me strategize my exit step by step. My good friend Julian also began picking up on things. He'd been part of our family's life forever. He used to assist my mom with yard work when we were in high school. On a particular Saturday, he came over to spend some time with me, and Carter completely lost it. He charged into the garage, yelling about unknown people being on the property. In his eagerness to show his authority, he accidentally dropped a pile of papers. Julian gathered them after Carter left, and what we found made me feel sick to my stomach. Loan forms, gambling receipts, and credit card bills, all under my mom's name. The sums involved were unbelievable. It was clear that Carter was gambling with funds that weren't his, and based on what I observed, he was suffering significant losses. I'm currently writing this from my new apartment. Although it's compact, I finally have my own space. Haley assisted me with the move last week, and Julian has been helping me catalog everything we've discovered. My mother is still unaware of the loans, but Gabriella is starting to get suspicious. Yesterday, she gave me a call. Her voice trembled as she told me she uncovered more paperwork. This morning, I passed by the house and noticed Carter agitatedly walking back and forth in the driveway while taking one of his secretive phone calls. But something was different this time. He appeared frightened, genuinely terrified. It was the same kind of fear I experienced that initial night in the garage when I understood my brother wasn't the person I believed him to be. The distinction is, I constructed my life anew starting from that garage's floor. Judging by those loan documents, Carter is on the brink of losing everything. And here's where things get interesting. I might be the only person who can help him now. The dilemma is, after all he's put me through, should I assist him? I can still picture him through the garage window, packing and constantly checking his phone. Karma's sense of humor is often quite peculiar. A follow-up to my earlier writing about enduring life in the garage while my brother lived luxuriously. It's been 8 months, and fate has a curious method of balancing the scales. Do you recall those loan documents I mentioned locating? That was only the start of things. Everything fell apart completely 3 weeks ago when my mom received a phone call from her bank regarding some questionable transactions happening on her accounts. It was discovered that Carter had been involved in activities beyond just playing online poker. He'd obtained numerous loans using my mom's personal data and had completely depleted all of her retirement funds. The day everything came to light started off like any other day. I was at my apartment, sipping coffee with Haley, when Gabriella called me. She was sobbing so intensely that I could hardly understand her. "I just discovered more documents," she managed to get out. "Leo, he's stolen everything, even my personal savings. I don't know what to do. I can't believe it." I immediately jumped in my car and drove over to the house. It was a complete mess when I got there. Mom was at the kitchen table, surrounded by piles of bank statements and loan paperwork, looking completely numb. Carter was nowhere to be found. Gabriella was standing near the window, holding herself, while Julian, whom my mom had called for assistance, was trying to make some sense out of the paperwork. The numbers were absolutely mind-blowing. Carter had somehow accumulated more than $400,000 in debt. He'd been taking out loans and then using those loans to pay off other loans, all the while losing every penny on gambling. My mom's retirement money, it was all gone. Gabriella's savings, completely wiped out. We even learned that the house was facing foreclosure because Carter had taken out a second mortgage on it without informing anyone. Later that evening, Carter finally arrived, attempting to remain calm. "I can explain everything," he stated, walking in as if he was preparing to give a regular presentation. But my mom simply held up a loan application, the one with her forged signature and Carter's expression. I believed I could repay everything. He kept insisting I had a plan. I thought I was on the cusp of a big payout. It was just the typical gambling addict story, but what really got to me was how he still tried to stay in charge. "We just need to not panic," he said, walking back and forth in the kitchen. "I'll find a solution. Everyone has to listen to me." That's when Gabriella spoke up. I'd never heard her voice so angry. "Listen to you? Like how you listened when I asked about our missing money. Or how you listened when your brother needed a place to live and you put him in the garage." The following weeks felt like a whirlwind of legal meetings and financial advisors. Mom was heartbroken but also furious, something I rarely witnessed. "I allowed this to happen," she said one evening at my home. "I let him call the shots because it was simpler than acknowledging something was amiss." This is where things start to get interesting. Do you recall how I told you about rebuilding my life after the garage incident? Well, I had been saving and investing my money carefully. When I found out the house was at risk of foreclosure, I ran the numbers. Utilizing my savings and a proper loan, I could buy it. Carter's response when he found out I was bidding on the house was truly amusing. "You can't do this," he stammered. "This is my house. You're just trying to get back at me." Possibly he was correct about the revenge part just a bit. But somebody needed to save Mom's house, and it definitely was not going to be him. I successfully bid on the house last week. The initial thing I did was tell Mom to remain in her room. After all, it's her place too. Gabriella had already packed up and left, only taking her personal possessions, leaving Carter to sort through his own messes. However, here's the twist of it all. When Carter pleaded with me to let him stay, I agreed. "The garage is completely your space," I told him, observing his face when he understood. "I even set up the old camping cot for you. You know, the one he gave me. He's been bunking there for a week now." My mom believes I'm completely bonkers for letting him stay at all, but I still recall how it feels to sink to the absolute lowest point. The distinction, though, is that I fell there due to terrible luck combined with awful timing. Carter, though, he brought about his own destruction. I watched him this morning, peering through that filthy garage window, observing Mom and Julian move my stuff into the master bedroom. It's the same window I used to stare through. It felt odd, like I should be feeling victorious, but mainly I just feel exhausted, and maybe a bit mournful for the brother I once knew. Earlier today, Gabriella called. She's temporarily staying with friends while she's getting her life back on track. She wanted to know if Carter seemed remorseful. I had to tell the truth. He seems angrier than remorseful. He's more concerned about what he lost than the people he harmed. Just like when he made me live in the garage, he still doesn't understand. The locksmith is arriving tomorrow to change all of the locks. I'm also putting in security cameras. You can never be too careful with a compulsive gambler on the premises. I'm trying to help Carter process everything, and I've given him information about some addiction programs. It's his choice if he actually utilizes them. I occasionally see him, late at night, wandering around the garage and making calls. I suppose it's hard to break old routines, but this time he isn't messing with anyone's finances or well-being but his own. It's strange how things unfold. This is the last update. This is the final wrap-up on the garage situation, and honestly, these past few months have been a crazy experience. You know how people say the best revenge is served cold? Imagine dishing it out through a grimy garage window while my brother, who's a recovering gambling addict, sees his entire life crumbling. It's been about 4 months since Carter started living in the garage, and let me tell you, karma doesn't even compare to well-thought-out revenge. At first, I actually felt guilty about making him live there. That feeling didn't last long, maybe 2 weeks, right until I found him trying to swipe Mom's fresh credit cards from her bag. Recall how he used to watch when I showered and locked the side door? Well, I took a cue from him, and I put a digital lock on the bathroom door, set a 15-minute timer, and limited it to 3 uses a day. I said it was for the water bill, using the exact words he'd used a year earlier. The look on his face was perfect, but here's where it gets good. Last month, Gabriella came to get the rest of her belongings. Julian helped her carry the boxes. They've been seeing a lot of each other recently. Carter watched the whole thing through. I recall that garage window, the same one I'd always gazed through while he was enjoying himself inside the house. Gabriella looked absolutely stunning. It's worth mentioning that she'd started taking care of her own well-being again now that she was no longer involved in Carter's chaotic life. Julian was making her laugh while they packed boxes into his truck, and I was certain I could hear Carter seething with anger from inside the garage. That was when I chose to really intensify his discomfort. I started inviting Julian and Gabriella over for dinner every week. I made sure to arrange the dining room table in a spot where it was clearly visible from the garage window. Carter would sit and watch them share laughter, conversation, and deepen their connection while he was stuck eating preheated meals on that worn-out camping cot. One evening, Carter tried to interrupt our dinner. He stormed in through the side door, acting like everything was perfectly fine. "Hey, everyone, is there space for me?" he asked as he pulled up a chair. Before anyone could respond, I rose to my feet and gave him a pleasant smile. "I'm sorry, but you need to schedule all house visits 24 hours in advance," I told him. "It's a new rule, for security reasons, I'm sure you understand." Those were the very words he'd used on me, the exact controlling way he spoke, and the same phony smile he always gave. He became so flushed with anger I thought he might burst. My mom finally started to speak up as well. She began calling him out on his manipulative behavior. Just last week, he attempted to guilt-trip her about some medical expenses. She just chuckled and said, "Why don't you ask your friends that you gamble with? I'm sure they're missing your money." The absolute best part of it all. Julian and Gabriella actually began dadding. At first, they attempted to keep their joy a secret, however. That kind of elation is hard to conceal. Carter discovered their secret when he witnessed them sharing a kiss in the driveway following one of our gatherings. He completely lost it, and it escalated to the point that the neighbors had to involve the police. That's when I initiated the garage renovation project. Naturally, I put in security cameras all over for his protection. I even put in a new window, nice and clear, so he wouldn't miss anything. Also, I installed some outdoor lights that conveniently illuminated the garage at night. I was just improving the house, I told him kindly. I wanted to guarantee he could see everything clearly. Last night was the best dinner yet by far. Julian asked Gabriella to marry him right there at the table. I'd helped him organize the proposal, guaranteeing they sat where Carter could see through his window. Obviously, she said yes. They are a perfect match. They're both such good and honest people who absolutely deserve happiness. Carter observed the whole thing. He witnessed his former wife accepting a proposal from his past friend. He watched my mom shed tears of joy and embrace them both. He saw me serve champagne and deliver a toast to new beginnings, all viewable through that clear garage window. He tried to mess up the moment, naturally. He banged loudly on the door, insisting that I let him in. I simply turned up the music and watched him completely lose it. The security cameras captured every moment. His dramatic outburst will make an excellent wedding video later on. This morning, I discovered a message from him, slid under the door. It was a jumble of words about how he's changed. I wonder if he believes he merits another opportunity. It's interesting how people only ask for absolution after they've lost everything, isn't it? I took the note, went out to the garage, and then gave it back to him. Requests for family reconciliation must be put in writing, going through the appropriate procedures with a 30-day delay, I told him. I'm sure you understand, it's just the way it is. The expression in his eyes, a combination of anger and desperation, was exactly how I had felt all those months ago in that same garage. But I, unlike him, pulled myself out of the situation, established something authentic, and created true bonds with people rather than trying to manipulate them. Haley believes I am being overly severe. Perhaps she has a point. However, anytime I start to feel remorseful, I think about how he stole my mother's retirement funds, how he nearly destroyed our family, and how he made me feel worthless in this very garage. Tonight, we are hosting another dinner party. Julian and Gabber and Briella are eager to start the wedding preparations. I've arranged some additional lighting in the dining room and want to make sure the view is ideal from the garage. Carter can observe his former life unfold in high definition. All through that window he forced me to stare through for so long. Some might describe it as unkind, but I see it as instructional. After all, he's the one who taught me that the most valuable lessons are sometimes learned through a garage window. I'm curious what he sees when he looks through it now.